What is up? This is Pastor Curtis from Metro East, and welcome to our Wisdom on Wednesdays. I am glad you are with us, my journey people, whether you're from the cornfields of Southern Illinois or the suburbs of West County. It is a joy to have you with us. Now, whether you're logging in on your coffee break at work or doing your 2-year-old's nap, I'm glad you're with us to learn how do we walk out wisdom. Remember, we don't want to just think about wisdom. We want to live. We want to act upon wisdom. And this week on Wisdom on Wednesdays, we're talking about intoxication. Now, before you kind of exclude yourself and say, well, I don't struggle with that. When Proverbs talks about intoxication, it's way more than simply alcohol. It's the overindulgence of things, the overindulgence of coffee, cookies, cupcake, Netflix, shopping, whatever. We all struggle with a particular area that we have a tendency to overindulge. And so it's important that all of us wrestle with what does it look like to walk out a wise life in these particular areas. Remember, our goal is not simply to think about wisdom, but to live a wise life. So today I want you to wrestle with 3 questions. The first question is, what is in you? What is in you? At the foundation of many of our decisions is not what's outside of us. It's not the beer. It's not the coffee. It's not the cake. It's the thoughts. It's the emotions. It's your tendencies inside of us. And we have to grow. We have to learn and practice the discipline of self-awareness. Many of us function with a lack of self-awareness. We really just don't know how we tick. We don't know the underlying issues that are behind the decisions that we make. And so we need to practice and learn what does it look like to take time on a daily basis for self-reflection. It may look different for all of us, journaling, walking, whatever it is, but we have to practice pausing and asking God to show us what's in us, because underneath it all, there are stories, narratives that we're telling ourselves. In fact, author Brene Brown of Rising Strong, I encourage you to check her out, TED Talks and books, but she talks about in her book, Rising Strong, about the stories we tell ourselves, and that she's encouraging us to have the courage to face our stories, feel the discomfort of pain, rejection, guilt, especially shame. Feel it, right? And then rewrite the story. Now we know there's no better story to rewrite our story than the gospel. And so what does it look like for you to become more aware of your story, right? Because when we don't address our story and are aware of it, it becomes fertile ground to intoxication, to overindulgence, to addiction. It becomes fertile ground for these things, especially shame. In fact, a few weeks ago, we heard Dr. Jack Deere preach a wonderful sermon on shame. Man, if you have not listened, in fact, if you have listened, go back and listen to it again, because it's a phenomenal message that talks about the roots of shame and how that lies underneath of many of the decisions that we make, especially in this area of intoxication and indulgence. Second question, all right? First is, what is in you? Second is, who is around you? Who is around you? Proverbs regularly points us to the fact that wise living happens when you're surrounded by wise people. He who walks with the wise, Proverbs tells us, becomes wise. So the question is, who's around you, right? Like, we all have those friends that will encourage our overindulgence. But do you have friends that challenge it? And not just challenge it verbally. Do you have friends that live in such a way that when you look at how you spend your time or how you eat that cupcake or how you drink that beer, their presence challenges you and calls you to a whole nother level? You ought to find those friends and be around them, because those who walk with the wise become wise. Find friends, in fact, be a friend that's willing to ask the hard questions. When it comes to overindulgence, many of us laugh it off. We'll laugh at it with our friends. We know they just binge watch a whole season of Stranger Things and we'll laugh it off. But maybe we should ask the harder questions of why? What's underneath that? Have you paused? Have you practiced self-awareness? So what is in you? Who's around you? Be mindful who's around you and be around those who encourage healthy consumption of things. But third, what can you do? What steps can you do to address these things? First, practice. Pray and practice self-control. Many of us, we pray for the Lord to give us self-control. And I'm glad you pray. But many of us stop there and we don't practice self-control. Remember, Proverbs is about behavior. A wise mind ends up with a wise life. And so you have to practice, put energy and intentionality towards practicing self-control. Practically, what this looks like, it's saying, I'm only going to watch 2 episodes on Netflix instead of 5. I'm only going to eat 3 cookies instead of a whole sleeve, right? I am only going to be on Snapchat 10 minutes instead of a whole day. It's choosing to minimize the consumption of things to practice self-control. Self-control is being able to, by the Lord's strength, and control your appetites and your desires. And practicing that gives that control back to you and allow grace to flood into your life in that particular way. But not just self-control. I'm going to drop the biggest F word that I can on you that I think everyone should listen to and everyone should practice. It is fasting. Now, some of y'all may have heard of it. Some of y'all may not have. But the spiritual practice of fasting, that is one thing that I would encourage every Christian to do. If there's one thing you can do today, next week, next year, that would challenge this particular area in any way, it's fasting, right? It's giving up of something, food, TV, social media, sugar. It's intentionally giving up on something and turning your eyes to God. Fasting sensitizes you to the voice of God, but it also sensitizes you to the attachment of other things. Sensitizes you to things that you overindulge in. In fact, when you think of fasting, and I mentioned fasting, what was the first thing that came to mind where you said, I don't want to give that up? Typically, that's the one thing you're probably overindulging in, and you might want to fast just to challenge that attachment that it has for you. So wrestle through these 3 questions. First question, what is in you, right? What thoughts, what story you're telling yourself? Second, who is around you? Who are the people around you? And do you have people that is challenging you to another level of a wise life? Or do you have people that's offering honest feedback or people that you're offering honest feedback to? And then third, what can you do? Practicing self-control. Hear me. Doing a fast where you're giving up on something for the good of your soul and your connection with God. Those are 3 things that I want you to walk through and discern what one step you can take. Now, on a serious note, I know that there is somebody, maybe a few of you, and when we're talking about this issue of intoxication, we're not simply talking about coffee. We're talking about a serious addiction, maybe alcoholism. I want to speak to you in this moment, and I want you to know that there are ways out, that the gospel is made available to you, and maybe you're here and you're stuck in the cycle of desperation, indulgence, and then regret, and you feel like there's no way out. Can I just speak to you? I want to encourage you, if you're at one of our Journey churches or know someone who is, would you reach out to them? Reach out to your lead pastor or your friend and express need for help. There are people and resources available for you to walk out healing and freedom in this particular area. But I want to encourage you to do that. So once again, thank you for joining us on our 3rd week of Wisdom on Wednesdays. If you know someone who can benefit from this, please share it with them. Any questions, let us know. We love you. See you next week.